I'm stoked for today. We've got Mr. Seth Bellas in the house from Clear Mortgage Partners. Is that the correct? Yeah, right there.
It's right there.
And before we dig into the nitty gritty of loans, because that's what people love to hear about more than anything, right? Loans are
It's the most interesting thing in the world.
Incredibly interesting and sexy.
Mm-hmm.
So, real quick question for you. What does Seth like to do outside of sling mortgages?
Well, I've been playing soccer since I could walk. So I still play soccer pretty competitively. Got 2 kids, love hanging out with them, love being a dad. That's probably one of my favorite things to do. But yeah, I like board games. I like sports. I like to try a little bit of everything. Honestly, it's like if there's an adventure somewhere to be had, like skydiving or bungee jumping or hiking or anything like that, I'm usually pretty down for. So
skydiving, bungee jumping, and board games is what I heard.
Yes.
Board games of all things. That might be the first person that's ever said, I like board games. Tell me more about that.
My family growing up, that was just something we did. Settlers of Catan, for those of you who are, board game fans. I grew up playing that game all the time. And yeah, just something about, it's funny, I said we weren't going to talk about mortgages, but I think, just like critical thinking, strategy, puzzles, trying to put everything together, is something that applies to board games, and it also is pretty relevant, I feel like, to mortgage.
It's cool. Board games. There's a certain board game that my wife and I cannot play. I've played it 2 times. It's Monopoly. And I'm convinced that the devil himself created Monopoly. So if you ever want to test your marriage, you play Monopoly, at least for me.
I remember making my mom cry one time playing Monopoly.
Okay, good. Yeah. I'm glad it's not just a unique experience to me.
Yeah, because I'm pretty ruthless when I play games. I'm going to win. There's no hey, we're going to take it easy on you. And I just don't play games that way.
Man, we must be cut from a similar cloth.
Spirit animals.
Yeah, exactly. So cool. Okay, so Seth, I think you've been with Canopy now 11 months.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is kind of cool that you're in person. You flew in. Your home state is Michigan.
Yep.
So you're here. Give for our listeners, give a little background of now you're. Oftentimes we're talking to newer people or people that have been here an extended period of time. This is the perfect amount of time.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about what the process has been like. Good, bad, ugly. Anything you want to share about what it was like making the transition over to Canopy, and fire away.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, the first 3 months are challenging. Especially if you're they're challenging and exciting, because you're building, at least what we did, we built this brand, which meant, website design. It meant, figuring out a logo, figuring out what do we want, who do we want to be in our marketplace? And then you got to push that message out, to everybody, because you were, I was Seth with this company for so long, and now I'm Seth, Clear Mortgage Partners. And you've got to make sure, obviously, one of the big things I think that loan officers are worried about when they make a move is this going to be what's the back end going to look like? Because when I'm meeting with operations here, everybody's saying, yeah, it's going to be great. This is going to be easy. We're going to make it really good. And you never really know, though, until you make the move and you do it. There's nothing you can be certain of. But I think that the way that Canopy does the transition is really cool, because you have essentially the best in ops that are handling all of your files, and having resources like, Sean, who was helping us a lot with just the origination side of the business when we were making that transition, helped a ton. Because one of the things you don't know, when you've been with one company for 10 years, you've built a lot of relationships with, with head of underwriting, and, you can call people and things will happen. But when you move to a new company, you don't know any of those people yet. And trust is not something you can build overnight. So I think, there's always a level of nervousness when you start something new. But honestly, we were just meeting with Naomi and talking with her about this, and Candace, and they were like, tell us what went, what was hard, about the transition. And honestly, because of how intuitive Nano is, which is a huge piece of it, and because of how committed I think operations is to making that transition great. I don't have anything else to compare it to, but I didn't feel like operationally that we struggled in that first 3 months. It was mostly like me, honestly, the hardest part is when you're in the middle of this transition, like you still have to go out and make loans happen. And so the challenge is, I have a great team, and that was really a huge benefit to me, in this season, having a really good team I could lean on to help mitigate, do some of the things that are more operations focused. Sure. So I think having a team is super helpful. But that's, I think, maybe the biggest challenge as an originator is, can you shut out the noise enough that you can still go out and have meetings and build new relationships and make phone calls, which is really a lot of the bread and butter of how you keep the pipeline full.
Love that. So I love your name, by the way. I mean, Seth's a cool name, but your company name, Clear Mortgage Partners. Tell me a little bit about that. Like, why that? And I think it's a unique, cool name.
Yeah, we just have always thought like everyone, when people come to us, we're in the customer service business. Mortgages are the thing, but customer service is the thing that's what we do. That's really what we do. And when we think about like, when people come to us, mortgage isn't something they teach in school. They don't teach you they're not telling you, hey, this is what it looks like to buy a house. Here's how you build a great credit profile. Here's how much money you need saved up. Here's really what a good monthly payment should be relative to your income level. And so, people come to us and they don't have answers oftentimes. And sometimes, Google can be helpful, but it's not always helpful as a resource. And so to have someone say, let's take all of your specific, things that you have going on and then talk about what you want to see happen. And then to build a plan around that, I think is really cool. And the idea was we used this phrasing before we started Clear Mortgage Partners, which is we want to help people build a clear mortgage plan, because we think if we can help people have clarity on how to get from, hey, I'm renting or I own a house but I want to buy a bigger one, to, hey, now we're actually doing the thing because we have confidence around the numbers. We think clarity is just one of the most important things we can do in this business. So that's really where the name kind of was birthed out of.
Yeah, one of my favorite thought leaders is Brené Brown, and her tagline in one of her books is "Clear is kind," and I think it absolutely applies in mortgage. I think it's an industry where there's a lot of noise, a lot of confusion, a lot of bait and switch, smoke and mirrors, and so how cool that your ultimate design behind the name is to start out like, look, we're being clear. We want to guide you to the perfect product for you and your unique scenario. So
yeah, and I think even like the model, one of the things that's cool about the partnership that we have with Canopy is because clarity is transparency. Those two things you would kind of put those two things in line. And I feel like when we started here, we led with, or we felt like, Canopy led with transparency and saying, hey, this is what the margin's going to look like. This is what we're going to provide. Here are the things we don't do. And some of those things were, they were different from the company that we came from. But, everything that was said during the recruiting process was what it turned out to be once we actually came and started, which I think was, after seeing some of the stuff, after hearing stories about other loan officers from different companies, making a jump to one company, getting a big signing bonus, and then seeing their pricing, go to crap, a few weeks later or a few months later. Like after hearing those stories, I'm getting this feel of, in the retail world, it's actually pretty common that there is a bait and switch mentality that a lot of these mortgage companies take. And I feel like the agreement we had with Canopy 11 months ago is the same arrangement that we have right now today. And I think it's fair. It's very fair for what we get. I think we're getting a great deal. And we're on pace to close. We're going to close, based on what we have lined up right now, $8 million in volume in the month of February, which is probably about, I think our highest I've ever closed in a February month because in our market, it's snowy, it's super cold. So I probably max closed like 2 or 3 million in February ever. So to have this kind of a month, in the middle of the winter in Michigan is just awesome.
Well, congratulations. That's a huge number in any market, especially in your market. So I'm curious, how on earth are you doing that? Historically, and as I look at the data, like typically January, February are kind of the dog months, and then you as spring starts to develop, then most pull out of that. But like, dude, what on earth are you doing over at Clear Mortgage Partners to?
Well, part of it is like having a strategy in place. Like when we've had these windows, and this, we've had these windows where rates will drop, by 0.25% or 0.5%, and we'll start seeing rates in the 5s briefly. And so when we see these windows, we know that they're often very brief. And because we have all the data, we have rate trackers built out inside of Nano, we know which clients are prime for a refinance conversation. And so a lot of it is scripting, it's follow-up, it's creating a sense of urgency, and then creating that commitment. But I also think Grand Rapids is part of it. I think so it's partly rate dependent. It's partly because Grand Rapids is still one of the more affordable parts of the country, where first-time homeowners can buy a house for $250,000, and I don't think that in a lot of parts of the country that's, so I think it is somewhat market dependent, but it is also like, we've been executing this game plan very consistently for years. I mean, even before we started with Canopy, and I think we're starting to see the results of that, like calling agents all the time, calling clients all the time, sending mailers out. Like we have so many touch points with agents and with partners or with clients. I think a lot of it is really stemming from, we're starting to see the compound effect of that payoff, which is really cool.
That's awesome. So if you were to look into the future, the next year, like what are your goals with Clear Mortgage Partners?
Yeah, I mean, well, a couple things that we're really excited about. We're starting to potentially doing some business coaching. That's something that you and I talked about, which is really cool, and we're very excited about that. But really, we want to just continue to do, it's funny because people will be like, what are you doing differently this year? It's like a lot of what we're doing, we make little tweaks, but sometimes I think growth is more about like doing the stuff that works and doubling down on it. Like it's not a shiny new thing. People are like, well, how are you using AI in your business? It's like, okay, AI can be helpful. I'm not saying it's not, but I think we overstate, or we're over, what's the word I'm looking for? We're probably thinking that AI is going to be the thing that changes the game. And I think this job is about relationships. It's about staying in front of people. It's about building a great social media presence and a great brand. And we've put a lot of effort into that. So I don't think there's anything crazy different we're doing this year. We would love to close. Our target goal is 50 million. We did about 41 last year. And I think it's very doable, especially if we start the first quarter, we've got 12 million between January and February. So if we start the first 2 months of the year already doing 12, it makes 50 like super achievable looking at the rest of the year. So this may be, I think, my best years were 2020 and 2021, like most originators who were in the business at that time. And we closed like 55 million on average each year. And I think that we have the potential to make 2026 our best year ever. And it is partly because we are in the system that we are. It's because of Nano. It's because of the freedom that we have. I mean, I can't tell you how fun it is to have the ability to just build it the way that we want it to be done. I mean, even down to the brand, and the logo, and, knowing that like, this is my baby, this is my thing. Like everything that we're pouring into this is like an investment, and it feels really cool to be in that space.
Well, you've been so kind about Canopy, but as you said, executing is key. And sure, we might have some really great tech and some tools that will help, but at the end of the day, it's the small and simple things. Something you said like resonated. I think oftentimes everyone's looking for the silver bullet, and it seems like AI right now is that silver bullet. But really, if you like back away from the tech and the noise, it's really just executing on the small and simple things over and over. And then, like you said, optimizing and doing more of those things. Why on earth would someone choose Clear Mortgage Partners? If I'm an agent, if I'm a customer, like why would I use Clear Mortgage Partners?
People want, I think that you want someone who is, like if something gets difficult, like for realtors especially, if there's a difficult loan or a challenging file, something that has a lot of unique aspects, like you want someone who is an expert in their product to be working with you on that transaction. But a lot of what people value is they want speed, they want clarity, and they want it at a good price. And we do all of those things. I wish I could tell you there was like something super incredible that we do that's so unique from everyone else, but there really isn't. But we do the small things, and we execute on the simple things really, really well. And when it comes to things like communication and updates and expectations, just doing what we say we're going to do, it sounds boring, but like if you think about it, like the boring stuff is the stuff that works. Just like you were talking about with things like AI. They sound really cool, but if you talk to any producer who's doing 75 or 100 million in production, you're going to realize that those people are on the phones all the time, and they have tons of connections, and they're always networking. So some of the, they say success leaves clues, and if you look at the top producers in your market, I guarantee you're going to see a lot of the same types of things that they're focusing on, and it's just a lot of really boring, mundane activity.
That's cool.
Like the Bears, right? Like to have a great, you're wearing a Bears hat, and I know you're a big Chicago sports fan. And to be a professional athlete, you see the plays that they make on a field, but what you don't see are the hundreds of catches or small little things that they're doing in practice that really aren't that exciting, and we only see the stuff on the TV. And I think that mortgage is like that too.
No, absolutely. Man, thanks for bringing up the Bears. It was an awesome season.
I'm still mad that you took Ben Johnson from the Lions.
Well, I apologize, but good, better, best. Never let it rest till your good gets better and your better gets best.
Yeah, no, I know. I was rooting, even though the Lions and the Bears are obviously rivals. I like Ben Johnson a lot, and so I was excited. I wanted the Bears to win their last playoff game before they got knocked out. But
well, that's kind of you, and certainly there is no Ben Johnson without Dan Campbell and the Lions. So everyone starts somewhere, and it's cool. Sports are very analogous, I think, in the business world and in life, and so kind of fun to go back and forth a little bit. So one question that I have, because it's the most basic question, but I love to hear how Ellos answers this. Like, what are rates going to do?
Yeah,
I bet you never get that from a client or a real estate agent, right? That question.
The current administration has kept everybody on their toes because there's a lot of the things that Trump has done over the last 12 months. We're about 12 months into his second term. There's no precedent for it. And, people don't realize, like, a lot of people think that mortgages are controlled by the Fed. They're not. The mortgages are controlled by investors buying mortgage-backed securities. And so that's what's happening. That's what's, impacting mortgage rates. And in a volatile market, where there's a lot of uncertainties from leadership, it makes it much harder to predict. If we had someone who was a little bit more vanilla, a little bit more predictable, it would be easier to have some ranges. I think it will be really interesting to see who the next Fed chair is, and and how removed they are from the pressure of the administration. So I think that could definitely play into what we see rates do. I would be surprised if we saw rates do anything crazy this year. I mean, really, I'm not going to try to be more expert than the experts. I think there's been a wide range, anywhere from like 5.75 to 6.5 in terms of like the average fixed rate over the course of the year. But if I had to guess, if you were like, hey, Seth, you got to, make a prediction, I would say that we're going to see a slight downturn during the course of the year, but I would expect rates to remain relatively similar to where they are right now. Unless Trump does something crazy that none of us expect, which is totally possible.
Yeah, exactly. He can be a wild card. There's no question about that. So thanks so much for your time today. In closing, I just want to commend you and say, like incredible what you've done in a short time. We are so blessed to have the Clear Mortgage Partner group as part of Canopy Mortgage Group, and I am super excited to see where you and your team take this not only in 2026 but beyond. He is Seth. If you're looking for some business coaching, got some exciting things on the docket there. If you have questions, and ultimately, if you're looking for a mortgage, what better person? He's the man. So thank you, and thanks for spending some time with us today.
Thanks, McKay.